Today, we are going to look at a Sega Game Gear that doesn't work. And it's going to be the capacitors. It's always the capacitors. And that's today on Tech Guy Life. So today we have a Game Gear that doesn't work, and let me show you what happens. I've got the power supply, which is good because this thing eats batteries like they're going out of style. So when we turn it on, we get power, but you can see that there's just the screen is all messed up. There's nothing going on. But the one thing to check out is when we turn it off and turn it back on again, you can faintly see those three lines, which is the Sega copyright information. So it does appear to be loading, but we're not getting anything else. We're not getting the actual game finishing the load. We don't get any sound, nothing. But it's going to be the capacitors. It's always the capacitors when it comes to the Sega Game Gear. What we need to figure out right now, what kind of Sega Game Gear do we have? So the Game Gear has all Phillips screws on the back. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's a security bit, believe it or not, right there. So it's Phillips and a security bit. So it's the same kind of bit as the Nintendo, as far as I know. It's just the bigger version. So it's a Game Bit 4.5, according to iFixit. And there we go. All right, so this is a VA5 board, and that is written right there. So we have a VA5. So I'm going to have to go find out what a VA5 needs for capacitors. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the bottom from the top, and that is done here. The blue connectors are soldered to the board, so you can't remove those, so you have to remove them here. And there we go. Oh, and there's also the speaker connector. So now the bottom half is disconnected from the top. We will have to do these two boards. This is the power board, and this is the audio board. So these will have to be done as well. But we're going to start with the main board first because everything, it was getting power. So we got to test this first, make sure everything's okay, and then we can redo the caps on there. And we don't know if the soundboard worked because we weren't getting any sound, but that could be for other reasons. So all of the caps on the bottom board are in these little plastic sleeves. These little plastic sleeves are all glued to the board. So what I like to do is be very careful doing this, but take a pair of like pliers or something and just kind of wiggle the plastic back and forth until you hear it just kind of like give away. There, you heard the crack. And there's a crack. So we're not trying to lift them off the board. You just want to kind of break the seal of the glue. And there we go. So now when we go in with the soldering iron and try to remove all of these, it should go a little bit better. So, yep, just grab it, just kind of wiggle it back and forth until you hear the glue crack. This one here is the hardest because it's got that connector right beside it. This is the one that is going to be your biggest pain. We'll try just using a plastic spudger and just kind of, yeah, there we go. Heard the crack, and there it's off. When we go to remove this one, we can actually bend it up and remove it. Time to start removing these. I'm going to start with this one because it's the hardest. I changed my tip to a really small tip, so hopefully I can just get under there. Yeah, got that first pin out. And I got the second one. So what I did was I just kind of edged on the side here to get under the first pin, and then just kind of slid over as I lifted it up in order to get to the second pin. And that got that one off without burning anything. I guess that's the plus. So let's go ahead and start getting the rest of these off. So there are maps and pictures of all of these board layouts and all of the capacitor values available on the internet, like on Console 5 and a couple other places. And I'll put some links down below just so that you have access to them. But they're easy to find too. But I'm going to go ahead and just get all of these old capacitors removed. So what we want to do is remove all the old capacitors, then put some flux on the board, use some solder wick to clean up all the pads, and then you want to like give this whole area a good scrub down with isopropyl alcohol in order to get all of the fluid that's leaked out of these capacitors off the board. Let's go ahead and start that now. May have lost a pad there. Good news, we did not lose a pad. It was just really corroded. So this was the one here that looked like it had got torn off, but once I cleaned it using the flux and the solder, you can see pad's still there. So no pads were destroyed. All right, so we still got 3 more capacitors to remove. We have this one, and then there are 2 more over here. So I'm going to get those off. All right, all the capacitors have been removed, so now it's time to install some new ones. I gotta figure out which way I'm gonna go, whether I'm just gonna put regular electrolytics on here or some SMD ceramic capacitors. Not sure which is going to be easier. Let me see what I'm gonna do here. So I tried out doing an SMD capacitor with this one right here. I put solder on one side, got it fixed down, and then added solder to the second side. It was fairly simple. It wasn't too bad. My shaky hands, in terms of trying to hold it, was the worst of it. So if the rest of them go so well, it should be okay. I don't have values to do all of them in the ceramic capacitors. Wish I had, but I don't have some of the higher values and some of the higher voltages. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the ones that I can in the ceramic capacitors, and then I'll put in regular electrolytic ones for the other ones. Well, that one went pretty simple. You probably can't see it because they're so bloody small. Yeah, it's not the prettiest job, but it'll work. Okay, so the first of the electrolytic capacitors is gonna go here. This is one of the things about the electrolytic capacitors compared to the ceramic ones is these ones you have to be careful which side is negative, which is the one with the line on it, and which side is positive. It is marked on the board, so you can see there's a plus symbol right there. Maybe you can't see it. Hopefully I can get a zoom in. But there's a plus symbol there, so that's where I have to wire up the positive side of the capacitor. If you put them in backwards, boom. Hopefully the whole thing won't explode, but the capacitor will most likely pop. And it's not pretty. So I bent the legs, soldered it standing up, so now I can just bend it down keep it out of the way, and I can just trim off the excess legs. All right, time to put some more ceramics in. All right. Okay, feeling good. Feeling good. These things are really small. I really wish I could just see them. So these were all 16 volt 10 UF capacitors, and I replaced them with 25 volt 10 UF capacitors. So as you can, I don't know if you remember, but as long as the voltage is the same or higher and the capacitance is the same, you can use that capacitor to replace the one that's there. So using 25 volt instead of 16 volt is not a big deal. So the other thing you have to be worried about when you use the ceramic capacitors is they all look the same. So these are all 10 UF, 10 microfarad? Yeah, 10 microfarad capacitors. This one is a 22, but they all look the same. So you have to be very careful when you're doing them to do only one value at a time. So I put in the last ceramic capacitor that I could put in, which was a 50 volt 1 microfarad capacitor, which goes there. The rest of them, I will have to switch back to regular electrolytic capacitors because I don't have any of these values in the smaller ceramic ones. The ceramic ones went in very easily. So if you were to do this yourself, I would suggest just trying to source all the capacitors in ceramic. The ones that I didn't have were the higher capacity ones, so like the 100 microfarad and the higher voltage in the 10s. So I only had 25 volt 10s, whereas some of these are 50s. So I think this is 100, that one's 100, and then the rest of them were 50 volt 10s that I didn't have. So I'm going to have to go to regular electrolytic for those. And I'm going to use the same process that I did over here, which is just making it at a right angle and then bending the capacitor down in order to sit flat on the board. All right, so I didn't show it on camera because I just got into the moment, but I got all of the regular electrolytic capacitors installed. And if you want to do this, I would suggest just get a kit that comes with all of these ceramic small SMD capacitors. At first, I was a little iffy about them in terms of like how small they were. My hands were all shaky, but they went in so much easier comparatively. You know, with this, you got to bend the legs and do all kinds of dipsy doodly things with them in order to get them to lay flat and to be in a spot, especially when you get into this area here. If you're trying to do all electrolytics, you have to bend them all and lay them down in certain ways. And you can't go through any of these spots here because there's stuff on the top part or on the bottom part of the shell that's going to touch almost there. So you have to avoid it. I haven't even tried fitting this on yet to see if I'm actually okay and got everything out of the way enough, because you can see this one here is a little shadowy over top of that spot, but I think it's going to be okay. The only easy one is like this one. Okay, so it went back together fine. No problems closing the case. So I figure while we're here, we might as well give it a try. There was power to the unit. We may not get sound, but we should see if the screen works better again. All right, here we go. All right, we got a fuzzy screen, but everything seems to be... There we go. That's the beauty of the Game Gear. Terrible screen no matter what you pay for it. But yeah, games are working again. Let's see if we have any sound. Oh. Awesome. But let's go ahead and turn that down. But let's go ahead and do the power board and the soundboard just because eventually they're going to die too. Okay, so for doing the soundboard and the power board, we're actually going to remove the little boards from the case because, well, it's really hard to get into here. Doing the ones on the main board was very easy. The case is like half open and easily accessible, but these, we cannot get to these without taking these little boards out. So the first thing you got to do is we have to take out this black piece, which is just held on by some adhesive. And that uncovers the battery pack, so we can just put some double-sided tape when we put this back in. And I believe it's just held in with some Phillips screws. So there's one there Then there's another one over here. And then this should come right out. Like so. 3 regular electrolytic capacitors on the board. So we'll just pop those out and replace them with whatever values they need to be. All right, let's get these capacitors out of the power board and get some new ones installed. Okay, there's one. Oh, the orange switch is a little cap that's on the power connector, so don't lose it. Just won't let go. There we go. All right, let's get those holes cleaned up. So when you do straight through electrolytic capacitors, it's really easy. The white side is matching up for the negative. So this is how the capacitors go in, just like that. You can see this one's actually considerably smaller than the old one. And that happens. Newer stuff is smaller. Okay, those capacitors are installed. While I have the board out and open, I'm going to give the switch a little shot of deoxit. Move the switch back and forth, and that should make it good. So let's reinstall this back in. Hat does go on only one way on the switch, so keep that in mind. If the board doesn't go all the way in, you probably got the switch cover on wrong. Okay, a small piece of double-sided tape. We're just going to put it right there. And we will put our black piece over top. There we go. And we'll put our screws back in. To get the audio board out, we have to take out this metal shield from the cartridge slot. So 4 Phillips screws remove the metal shield, and then 2 Phillips screws remove the audio board. Now the audio board has SMD caps on it, which is an adventure all in itself. If you have to replace these with regular electrolytics, you will have to bend and contort them in ways in order to fit them on the board. But I have some SMD caps that should just replace these, and I'm going to go find those. All right, so the audio board didn't go as well as I had hoped. I only had these 3 capacitors that I could replace on the board. I don't have replacements for these 2, so I'll just leave them for now. This one went fine. There is adhesive underneath these caps, which makes it difficult to remove, which is why I ended up tearing a pad on this one. But I just had to kind of install it a little crooked in order to get the pads or get the points soldered onto the board. This one, because it's so close to the plastic connector, I went with a regular electrolytic and just folded it down. It has no problem fitting when you put the metal shield back. It's only these ones that are the problem over here. Let's put it back together and see if we've got this Game Gear working perfectly. Not that it wasn't working perfectly after we did the board, but, I had to ruin it a little bit further. Again, if you were to do this, these ones here are easy because they're through holes. But for all these other ones, just get the little the ceramic capacitors. So much easier for this particular use case. I would do these all the time if I had access to just using those ceramic capacitors. Just noticed I didn't clean that. Feeling confident, I'm going to put in a couple of screws to hold the case together. Game in. Power connected. Get my lamp out of the way. Okay. Now, the weird lines that you see on the screen are because of the old technology used in the screen. It doesn't look like that in real life. Let's see if I can adjust the brightness on that. That looks better. Not for you. There we go. Oh. And there we go. Nice clear sound. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm the red guy. There we go. I don't even know if you can see that. Probably not. Because the screen is just terrible. Anyway, let's put the screws back in, give it a clean, and then this guy will be done. Put our completely unnecessary game bit back in, and we'll put back all the Phillips screws. There we go. Nice and clean. All nice and fixed, ready to go. I put the Sonic the Hedgehog game in there that comes with it, and I can't find the volume dial. There we go. Turn that down just a tad. If you go to find a Sega Game Gear, if it hasn't already been recapped, you are going to have to recap it. There is no doubt about it. These machines are notorious for failed caps. This was a VA5 board, which was the last revision, and it still had crappy capacitors in it. So if you go to find a Game Gear and you would like to buy one, you're gonna have to recap it unless it's already been done. A couple other things I would suggest. If you want to have your forever Game Gear, change the screen. This thing is terrible. You will not play this if the screen is the original. It is just that bad. Awesome for when it came out, terrible for now. The other thing I would do is use the clean audio board. Get the new audio board to go along with it and clean it all up. And then there's replacement power boards that you can even do in this thing to put it on USB-C power. So there are some great mods that you can do to this to bring the Game Gear up into the 20th century. 21st, actually. 21st now? Yeah, 21st century. Anyway, that's it for this episode. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell anyone that'll listen to you. And then we'll see you in the next one. Bye.